Ladies and gentlemen, this is an article. SBA suspends nearly 7,000 Minnesota borrowers. Small Business Administration Thursday suspended 6,900 Minnesota borrowers over suspected fraud ties. This is huge. It very likely, almost certainly, either leads directly to the governor and other Democratic Party officials, representatives. They were either inept, completely inept, or potentially criminally liable, complicit, engaged in the fraud. Going after whistleblowers, for example, would be a crime if they knew that fraud or they suspected that fraud was taking place, yet they didn't want law enforcement to investigate for whatever reason. Anyway, hit subscribe to this channel right now, to my super chat. Thank you. Let's get started. This is huge. This leads to Tim Walz. And like I said, this is a Democratic Party scandal. It should not be viewed as a Somali scandal. God bless the Somali community in Minnesota and around the world. It's not. This is happening in every single Democratic-run city, major city, in every gigantic blue state. So it can't be labeled. You can't give Democrats that easy layup that to circumvent the political realities, the graft, bribery, the likely fraud in other major cities run by morally superior, highly educated Democrats. That is not. It is a Democratic Party scandal, just like Jeffrey Epps was a Democratic donor, gave 20,000+ to Chuck Schumer, Clinton, and others. Anyway, hit subscribe. Check this out.
DHS Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs Tricia McLaughlin says there's more to come, and she joins us tonight. All right, Tricia, thank you so much. What are the agents looking for, and what have they found so far?
Jason, thank you so much for having me. As we speak, our Homeland Security investigators, hundreds are on the ground. They're knocking doors. They're going to local businesses. They're going to these sites where we believe that there is rampant fraud, whether it be daycare centers, healthcare centers, or other organizations that take taxpayer dollars. Our Homeland Security investigators on the ground are also seeing that these suspected perpetrators are really trying to cover their tracks. They're trying to whitewash the operational facts on the ground, purporting to be a legitimate business, have legitimate business operations, when it's all a fugazi. So we're going to continue to ask those questions. We're learning more and more, especially with the FBI and our DOJ partners on the ground.
Well, a lot of this comes through Health and Human Services. And look, I understand that the assistant, whatever title he was, said, oh, they're taking immediate action. But to be honest with you, Tricia, this has been going on for years. To say they've taken immediate action, that probably should have happened a year ago. This doesn't flow through Homeland Security. It flows through Health and Human Services. But ultimately, it is the responsibility of the governor and the state of Minnesota. But to say they took immediate actions, with all due respect, these reports go back almost 10 years.
No, you're absolutely right, Jason. Either they're culpable or they buried their head in the sand. But fortunately,
exactly. So either they're culpable or complicit. And by the way, to my super chat, thank you. Paul Bartlett in Australia, I cannot thank you enough. Thank you so much, my friend. Happy New Year to you. Thank you so much.
President Trump, Secretary Noem, and the entire administration, this is an all-hands-on-deck operation. You saw HHS freezing that funding, SBA freezing that funding, FBI's on the ground. We've surged hundreds of officers from Homeland Security investigations. But if you rewind even a month, we saw that this problem was happening. We've arrested more than 500 criminal legal aliens off of the streets of Minneapolis alone. We have a wide-scale investigation into immigration fraud with our USCIS partners. So the Trump administration is not resting on our laurels. We will get answers and accountability for the American people.
CNN weighed in on the White House getting involved in Minnesota over the fraud allegations. Have a look at this, and I want to get your reaction.
This is an attempt to make this about Somalis in general, as opposed to just about the people who are responsible. It's not really a
fraud. We should ignore it because.
So that's one of my arguments is don't give CNN and Democrats a way to circumvent culpability or, their complicity in all of this. It's a Democratic Party scandal. Like, this is taking place among all different types of citizens that live within Democratic Party run cities. The Democratic Party scandal.
They might be from, somewhere in Africa.
It's amazing to me, but of course it shouldn't surprise me that CNN makes this about race baiting when in reality it's about stopping fraud and abuse and being responsible for U.S. taxpayer dollars. I think people across the aisle, Republican, Democrat, Independent, doesn't matter. We should be praising Nick Shirley. He's did courageous and really remarkable journalism, and CNN should have been ahead of this all along, as well as the rest of the mainstream media.
Amen to that. Tricia McLaughlin, thank you.
Nick Shirley deserves a Pulitzer Prize. Subscribe to his channel right now.
Minnesota, why not? A Somali-run daycare in Minneapolis was reportedly broken into and vandalized earlier this week. Here's what the day.
Yes, I mean, all eyes are on Minnesota right now and all fraud related to what Nick Shirley has brought attention to right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's remarkable, isn't it? How could that go on for so long? I mean, going back to 2018 and earlier than that, how could something like that go on with no one bringing it to the surface before now?
Well, and that's what the FBI will be looking into and doing a full and exhaustive investigation. These investigations take time, but I can tell you right now that there were things that people were seeing that were of concern, and there were certain field offices, not just
Flash of the Titan 244, thank you so very, very much. Greatly, greatly appreciated. Happy New Year to you. And have a wonderful, amazing 2026. Thank you for watching. Clash of the Titan 244. Thank you so much. Greatly appreciated. Paul, again, thank you as always. Thanks to my super chat.
just in Minnesota, but across the country, where under the Biden administration, there were federal prosecutors that were literally not wanting to work certain investigations. They were saying, you know, that appears to be too political, and they were turning a blind eye almost into things that needed to be looked into. And so that's what's very disheartening about this. But rest assured that the DOJ and the FBI, they've already arrested 92 individuals in Minnesota. 80 of them are Somalis. There's a lot of work going on behind the scenes that, you know, you may not see every day as an American citizen, but it is happening. And don't kid yourself. All eyes are on Minnesota, and not just Minnesota. I know that they're going to be looking closely into Columbus, Ohio, into Washington State, into Maine. This is a problem that is nationwide. And I do believe that these networks are very highly orchestrated and organized, and they work together behind the scenes nationwide.
So a lot more to come, as they say. But I want to get to this issue, Nicole. The FBI just revealed that they foiled a New Year's Eve terror.
So the more that this investigation continues, the closer it leads to, or the likelihood that it leads to directly to Governor Walz. This is not rocket science. There's a reason, and there's potential that the fraud is correlated to the net worth, the increase in net worth for certain Democrats in Minnesota. That is not hyperbole either.
Former Deputy DHS Secretary Ken Cuccinelli joins me now. So great to see you this evening. Thanks for joining us.
Good to see you, John.
So when you start to sort of unpack the outlines of this enormous fraud scandal, how important is the open borders aspect of all of this in terms of the Democrats' playbook?
Well, certainly as part of the Democrats' playbook, it's been part of it for 15 years. And what used to be a fairly bipartisan issue, you can go back to just the Clinton era when this was a bipartisan issue. Joe Biden voting the same way as conservatives when he was back in the Senate in the 1990s, just by way of example. And under the Obama administration, really it started under the Bush administration to see the political divide and the Democrats try to use the issue. Well, in the Minnesota, you've got this concentration of Somalis, I believe the largest concentration outside of Somalia. And some of them are here legally, as was noted earlier in your report. Some are here illegally. That implicates the open borders policies, as well as just the free parole, the asylum for any reason mentality of the Biden administration. And then you roll that into the kind of fraud at a scale I'm not sure we've ever seen in the United States before. And some of that funding is reportedly, from Fox reporting, getting back to al-Shabaab. And for your viewers, al-Shabaab is basically al-Qaeda in Africa, is the simple way to think of it. It's a terrorist organization, vicious, jihadist. And some of this money is reportedly finding its way back to funding that terrorism. So this is unlike anything I think we've ever seen on the fraud front in the United States.
Well, certainly it raises lots of questions because, one of the things about fraud and stealing $9 billion, especially if you're illegals coming from a country whose GDP is not much more than $9 billion, it does raise a lot of questions about we don't know where that money goes to. To what degree do the sanctuary city policies hamper the efforts to crack down on this and get to the bottom of this?
Sure. Massively. Look, when I was the Attorney General of Virginia, we set records for health care fraud. And some of what we're looking at, you did child care, there was a focus there, but this is spreading across several areas in Minnesota, and it's all run out of the same agency. And their Attorney General, Keith Ellison, was covering for people. We know Minnesota Governor Walz was, let's just say, being unaggressive about policing and prosecuting this.
At a certain point, the scheming and the, Governor Walz said, well, we tried. We couldn't find any. We couldn't find any fraud. And then James Comey and John Brennan, well, we didn't know that the Steele dossier was purchased by Clinton. And then, Hunter's laptop, or Biden's laptop, had the hallmarks of a Russian disinformation campaign. You can't prove that we did it on purpose. We see everyone knows what's going on. Oh, Clinton's servers had, it was about yoga. It was for convenience. I mean, these are completely outlandish scandals. Oh, Biden, we didn't know Biden had cognitive issues until the debate. Oh, we just found out. I mean, it's completely outlandish. At a certain point, the DOJ has to, and then you can even continue that, well, there's no malice when the New York Times or Washington Post or ABC News or CNN, there's no malice when they deliberately focus every single story on trying to disparage Trump. Sometimes even making up or fabricating or omitting or adding quotes, retracting things, then they have to retract things. It's at a certain point, there has to be some acknowledgement by the courts that these things are happening intentionally. When Comey said, well, she didn't intentionally commit crimes. Owning private servers for 4 years where top secret intelligence was illegally transferred, and we still don't know how Clinton's servers transferred top secret intelligence.
Fraud. And when you've got those kind of sanctuary mentalities and policies in place, you make excuses and you cover up instead of uncovering and prosecuting, which is how you protect the American taxpayers and the American people.
Well, it certainly is curious, especially when you start looking at the number of people who were beneficiaries of some of this fraudulent money who also happen to be somehow weirdly politically connected to Tim Walz and Ilhan Omar. You're a smart political watcher as well. And I keep looking at these numbers, this $9 billion number, and assuming that it's anything like that, let alone larger than that. I also kind of think about it in terms of inflation. So not only did American taxpayers, get fleeced of that money and did it get stolen from them, but it also amounts to monstrous inflation that every single American is struggling under right now.
Yeah, there's no question.
A couple of years back in 2022, you had the FTX collapse. The second largest donor, Sam Bankman-Fried, and that was $8 billion. That was an estimate of $8 billion. Then you have $8 to $9 billion here. Those are just two. He was the second largest donor. This is a Democratic-run city. with $8 to $9 billion. I mean, it's just, I mean, the level of fraud and waste, how many tens of billions of dollars? Does it reach $1 trillion? I mean, how many tens of billions of dollars or hundreds of billions of dollars in waste every year? That it's mind-boggling. And then these are the same people who say, Trump, Republicans want to cut SNAP. Well, number one, why are people mired in poverty where they need a social safety net? You should probably address the root causes. Oh, that's right, outsourcing, which Trump is trying to address with tariffs. But of course, anything Trump does is bad, even though Democrats should, based on their own platform, should love what he's doing. But anyway, the point is, these are the same people who want Medicare for all, single payer, and if they addressed all the fraud that goes on under their watch, they probably could have single payer. But that would help Trump, so we don't want to do that.
Question, I mean, this is just part of it, but when you've got government pumping out money, and let's face it, printing money to pump it out this fast, which is what causes inflation, you can't police it at this level effectively. You know, in Minnesota, the Democrat hierarchy didn't want to police it. And at the federal level, they were unable to for many years. It's taken the kind of aggressiveness that only a President Trump brings to the table to finally start cracking down on this, but it's been going on for many, many years. And, you know, until we shrink government truly, it's going to be hard to police large-scale fraud like this on the front end, which is what American taxpayers deserve, is cutting this off before it gets going, not trying to recapture a bunch of money that's found its way back to Somalia, which will, of course, never recover.
Right. And I guess, you know, along the lines of that, I hope that maybe politicians in both parties wake up and realize that these emergency funding measures, and we saw them during COVID,
right,
and quite frankly, we saw both parties getting in on it.
You know, I just thought of something. Gee, who got wealthy and rich when the economy shut down? Huh, interesting. That's interesting. All those federal funds and the billions in waste. And you had the Democrats pushing to shut down the economy. Geez, that's bizarre.
Where you have to hurry up and pass something, you can't look at it, you can't think about it, you can't put up guardrails to protect taxpayer money. You just have to pass it because it's an emergency. That's one of the ways we want that, and flat out corruption is how we wind up in a situation like this.
Right. We're going to be quoting Nancy Pelosi long after she's gone for the you have to vote on it to find out what's in it mentality. But her quote perfectly fits your description, Charlie, and I agree with you 100%. Until you're vetting this on the front end, and again, you can't do that if you have 72 hours to decide to vote if you're in Congress, and you also can't do it if you're spending money at the scale and level on a bipartisan basis that Washington is spending money at. And until that shrinks and they start parsing this on the front end, which they'll be able to do once it's much smaller, we're going to see more of this. Though I'm not sure we'll ever see quite the mix of immigration, healthcare fraud with an enormous immigration, specific community like the Somalis together again in this combination. Ever again. I hope not. But it's also why you have DHS doing its own investigations, not just HHS and the FBI. There's an awful lot of agencies who have jurisdiction over various aspects of the law breaking that Minnesota has allowed to go on for so long.
Yeah. Well.
So the question is, why did Minnesota allow this? If you live in Minnesota, let us know in the chat. Why did Governor Walz allow this to take place? Why did Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, Walz, other Democrats, Amy Klobuchar, why did these people allow or turned a blind eye, or how did they not know this was taking place? These are the people who want to protect democracy from Trump. Oh, Trump. Oh, Trump. He's going to devour democracy. Well, there's $8 billion that's being devoured right now in your state. Why didn't you know?
Speaker Lisa Demuth, thank you very much, Speaker, for being. Well, let's bring in Minnesota House Speaker Lisa Demuth. Thank you very much, Speaker, for being with us. It is just kind of stunning that you're hearing from state officials that they've got 55 investigations and have found no evidence of fraud, including at some of the locations that were named in Nick Shirley's reporting, which we have all seen by now.
55 investigations and no evidence of fraud. That has to be a crime right there, almost certainly.
Close the gap for us. How is that even possible?
You know, Jackie, thank you for having me on today. And fraud in Minnesota is something that we have been talking about as House Republicans for years. We could not get Democrats to work with us to put an end to this or even to insert extra internal controls. What you are seeing out of this viral video that is done by independent journalist Nick Shirley has finally shown the light to all of Minnesota and the nation on how deep the fraud is, how it has gone unchecked, and why we need to stop this now. This is a theft of taxpayer dollars, both state and federal. We're grateful for the U.S. Attorney's Office and the feds that are coming to give assistance here where our governor and his administration have failed the people of Minnesota.
So what tools do you have to make sure that things are in fact happening as they should be? Because you have right now the head of the Department of Children, Youth and Families denying these allegations and saying that no payments are being paused. Listen to this.
Each of the facilities mentioned in the video has been visited at least once in the last 6 months as part of our typical licensing process. For the current child care centers that have been named in the video, we have not paused. There isn't a current pause on any of their payments. As we gain more information from the folks that are out visiting today and gathering additional information, that may change.
So the federal government's withholding money, Small Business Administration is withholding funding, but at the state level, what options do you have to put things on hold and actually verify what's going on here?
You know, the governor could send in-person investigations and in-person site visits to each one of these sites. Department of Human Services here in Minnesota could be doing those. As you just heard from the commissioner, first we were told yesterday that site, the Quality Learning Center, misspelled on learning, we had heard that had closed down. And then yesterday, we found out later by an independent journalist from Carol 11 TV saying, no, there are kids being dropped off there right now. Clearly, the Walz administration and his agencies have no idea what is going on. They could have independent people going in and looking at these agencies to determine whether or not they're open, whether or not they're safe, if there are children or not, and they could be pausing those payments while this is being investigated. If the governor doesn't feel that he has what is needed to do that.
And the House Speaker, the House Speaker is 100% right, but the governor is not going to do anything. If anything, he's likely complicit, or he just does not want to do any due diligence or investigation. That's the thing also. I mean, the governor is, of any state is powerful, has a lot of influence within law enforcement, has a lot of influence. If the governor does not want to find corruption, they are not going to find corruption. If the governor wants to find corruption, they will find corruption. The governor of a state has more power than the president when it comes to that state. Trump couldn't tell people in 2020 to open up their economies. That was the governor could either shut down. Democratic governors shut down their states so quickly. Trump had no, and when they say like Trump didn't take it seriously, it's Trump's handling of you know what. Like he wasn't a governor. Governors have more power than the president when it comes to their own state, which is why Walz is now like, the poster child for this rampant corruption.
Action, he could easily call the legislature and have us come in and get into law or get into work.
Ronald, exactly. That would be amazing, right? That would be amazing, Ronald Foos. Thank you. That would be amazing, but unfortunately, it just don't work that way. But I agree with you. I mean, it's only fair, actually. It's only fair.
Of what needs to be done in order to stop those payments. We know from the Feeding Our Future scandal that was a couple of years ago, $250 million in fraud COVID money that went out, that the governor could have stopped those payments or paused those payments. He chose not to.
Yeah, you make a good point. If the governor really wants to prove his dedication to, unrooting where this starts and ends, there are tools left at his disposal. And there's now, all this reporting coming forward to show that he has had time to pay attention to this. There was a Fox report, actually, that cited a 2018 local Fox station who pulled up a video from 2015 showing that the parents of some of these kids that were going to these learning centers were getting kickbacks, literally bringing them into a location, checking them in, and then taking them back out a few minutes later, billing the state for services that were not rendered, and then later receiving an envelope, which was purported to be back in 2018, a kickback. There is so much here, and I guess my last question to you is: does the buck stop with Waltz?
Yeah, but you can't. This is the thing. This is the problem with what's taking place right now. I think 2026, you're going to get major indictments, even Hillary Clinton. But in Minnesota, you can have 90, you can have 100 indictments, you can have 200 indictments. There's now 90 indictments, but these are of citizens. Okay? People who live in Minnesota. Let's just say people who live in individuals. But that's not going to stop the fraud. You have the top of Enron. You could look at Enron. Okay, well, I mean, the Enron tanked, the whole thing tanked. You could look at Enron, and it wasn't until the top went to prison, then it was like, okay, now we understand the scandal. You cannot simply indict 90, 100 individuals who really don't have power statewide at all. They're just individuals. It's impossible for $9 billion. Okay, there's no evidence that Ilhan Omar, there's no evidence that Governor Waltz or Congresswoman Omar committed any crimes. Okay, the circumstantial evidence is that potentially, like the Honorable James Comey says, potentially, you had top-level people involved or complicit or just completely inept, but they're not inept. That's the thing.
It absolutely does. Governor Walz is the governor of the state. If you think of it in business terms, he is the CEO of a business. Anytime there's this much fraud gone unchecked and a lack of internal controls within the agencies and programs for this long, any CEO would be held accountable. We are asking the governor to do the right thing, not just to try to all of a sudden cover it or saying that he's working so hard on it. He has had 7 years, and fraud under his administration has exploded. It is time for fraud in the state of Minnesota to end now. This is a theft of taxpayer dollars.
And I know that you intend to throw your hat in the ring, potentially to replace him, and we'll see how voters respond to that when.
And hopefully Lisa DeMuth wins. She becomes governor. But the thing is, like Democrats, the way Democrats work is you've had 10 years of indoctrination. You could take $20 billion. You could take $20 billion and incinerate $20 billion of taxpayer money, and the person doing like the destruction, the person be like, look what I'm doing. I'm destroying $20 million in U.S. currency. Look, everybody, it's your taxpayer money. But I despise Trump, and I'll save this democracy from Trump. And then they'll win the Democratic nomination. They'll win the primary. It don't matter. They don't care. They don't care. You can say 20 billion, 30 billion, man, whatever. You have money for this. You have money for that. You have money to oust dictators. What about, who cares about fraud? Trump is worse. That's the only thing they care about.
Let's bring in Minnesota Congressman and House Majority Whip Tom Emmer. Congressman, welcome. So what is your reaction to this misspelled learning center with no children in it and a $4 million price tag?
Well, it's amazing to me that a 23-year-old journalist, a YouTuber, who's now got over 80 million views on this thing, found more in a matter of hours than Tim Walz and Keith Ellison, our Attorney General, have found in 7 years, Mike. I got to tell you, we've known in Minnesota about the daycare fraud for a decade. Keith Ellison is our current Attorney General. His predecessor, Lori Swanson, was actually investigating the daycare fraud and prosecuting back in 2017 and 18. As soon as Ellison became the Attorney General and Walz became the
John, thank you so much. To my super chat, thank you. Greatly appreciated, John. To my super chat, thank you. We're doing 3 live streams a day, everybody. John Swigler, thank you so very much. 6512, thank you. Greatly appreciated. Happy New Year to you. Have an amazing 2026. Citizen E22, exactly. Thanks, everybody. And we're doing 3 live streams a day. Just, you know what? Set your dial, set your clock to the morning or early afternoon, but morning, noon, and evening, late evening live streams every day. I've done it January 1st and 2nd, and we're doing January 3rd, and it's going to be every day this year. And believe it or not, H.A. Goodman's other channel is growing. We're over 20,000 subs there. And so I'm going to have a segment right after this one there as well. So 2 channels. This one will be devoted primarily to live streams, but we'll have uploads too. And then the uploads are on H.A. Goodman's other channel, a pithy, concise, 3 to 4 minute summary of this, these 1 hour live streams.
governor. All of that stopped, and now you see the result. Billions of dollars, it has been alleged, that they have fraudulently bilked out of Minnesota. There was a housing stabilization program that was created in 2020. It's through the Medicaid program, a different one other than daycare. They spent $161 million. It was estimated it was going to be $2 million a year, Mike. From 2020 until they shut it down in October, it was $161 million. This daycare fraud, there's one woman in particular who created a fake daycare and bilked $14 million on her own. This thing is huge. Tim Walz is absolutely singing a false song when he says that Republicans are doing this. He has not done anything to prosecute or investigate fraud. I'm going to tell you, this Kash Patel put out that they're investigating this. They've got a whole bunch of pending people that could be indicted. And what does Tim Walz do? He puts a post out on his Twitter that says, Happy Catterday, with a picture of a cat. In our local paper, these guys are complicit. They put out the biggest stories of 2025, and guess what, Mike? Not one mention of fraud. This thing is huge.
Stunning. Indiana Governor Mike Braun.
Here's the thing, though. If it's not huge unless people at the top are found to have committed crimes. And you can look at the FTX debacle with the cryptocurrency, the Ponzi scheme, the CEO, Bankman-Fried, or the president of that company, corporation, he's in prison. Okay, he was the second largest Democratic donor. Jeffrey Epp was a large Democratic donor. A whole bunch of people in Hollywood, a whole bunch of Democratic donors, you could look at the donors, you could look at the fraud and waste with Tim Walz. There's a pattern. The Democrats are very good at funneling money through shady sources and means. They're just really good at it. And this goes back to Tammany Hall. It's not difficult. That's why, I love Kash Patel, and he's doing a great job, but he has to do a much better job of finding, like, there has to be, if the money trail is in the billions, if fraud in the millions, you're going to get caught. In the fraud in the hundreds of thousands, you're going to get caught. In the millions, for sure, you'll get caught. In the billions, you should, it's not even possible for even $1 billion to be funneled anywhere without people at the top knowing exactly what's going on. This is not rocket science. That's what I'm saying. It's not rocket science.
Ron says he doesn't think this is just Minnesota. He thinks we'll find this kind of fraud elsewhere. Let's play him, and I'll get you to react.
I think any of those states that do run their own state governments, say like California, Illinois, New York, Minnesota, they're going to have more of it because they've never been interested in trying to run it well. Enterprising states will fix a lot of these problems, and it's really fun to have a job where you can check it off in terms of what you're doing day by day, month by month.
I understand, obviously, you're very concerned about Minnesota, your home state, but do you think we'll find this in other blue states as well?
I do, but here's the difference. In Minnesota, this has been going on for years. I told you, we've known about the daycare fraud for the past decade. We've been trying to sound the alarm on the rest of the fraud for the last 3 years, and it wasn't until President Trump, who I'm very grateful for him actually saying something about it, made this a national story that people started paying attention. And here's the difference. Minnesota, it's apparently a business. Whistleblowers are coming forward, and if they are real, Mike, and if what they're saying can be documented, and what they're saying is they told Tim Walz, they told Keith Ellison about the fraud when it was happening, and they not only didn't do anything, they retaliated against them. Mike, if that's true, if that can be documented.
If that's true, it's a crime. If that's true, it's a crime. God. They get Trump on trying to foment a rebellion. Nothing. In their minds, they indicted Trump. He was on like that meme. He was on like the tank with the laser beams coming from his eyes and like eagles flying and rocket launchers and like, neon, that's their vision of Trump. Or even worse, that's what they think Trump was like trying to take over D.C. and the country and needed to try to foment a rebellion. And they indict him. Meanwhile, this is like rampant corruption. And it's like, well, what's happening? I do believe something. I actually think it's actually not just quite possible. It's likely Walz gets indicted if there's criminality found. If we must add for legal purposes if there's criminality found. But I think I don't see how $8 billion could be funneled anywhere without a governor knowing. But I could be wrong.
These guys need to be prosecuted, held accountable, and prosecuted to the full extent of the law. And the other difference here is the taxpayer dollars in Minnesota, billions were being shipped overseas to a known terrorist group, Al-Shabaab, back in Somalia. So this is much bigger in Minnesota. I do not disagree with Governor Braun that it probably is happening elsewhere as well.
I'd like to ask you about the news of the hour, the news of the day, that critical meeting at Mar-a-Lago between Presidents Trump and Zelensky of Ukraine. What's your reaction?
Now with more, Ohio Republican gubernatorial candidate Vivek Ramaswamy. Vivek, look, you've talked about the waste, fraud, the abuse. We saw Doge, your involvement there. I mean, it is amazing what you're able to come up with in just a couple of weeks, really. But it's just this never-ending sieve of fleecing of the American taxpayers, and I just think they're at a breaking point at this point. The numbers are so big, and it's so flagrant in our face.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And the situation in Minnesota sounds pretty bad based on the facts, but let's just take a step back, Jason. You want to get to the root cause of the problem? It is the vast scope of the overgrown federal welfare state itself. That's the actual problem. The reality is, even if you look at since the pandemic, what are the numbers? $1.7 trillion in federal transfer payments before the pandemic. That was already way too high, unjustifiably high. But $1.7 trillion before the pandemic, it's almost $5 trillion a year today. That's unjustified. And when you have the government overtaxing people across the board and then reallocating that money through a complicated scheme to a smaller number of individuals, it is ripe for abuse. And that means the biggest money laundering operation of all is actually the size and scope of that federal welfare state itself. The answer is, you know what? Put money back in the pockets of American citizens through lower taxation. Let individuals actually decide how to spend their money rather than the government doing it for them. That's the answer. Now, Democrats created this problem ever since Lyndon Johnson's Great Society, the biggest
So Vivek Ramaswamy is right, but the thing is, okay, number one, there needs to be if there's crimes committed. We don't know if Waltz or Ilhan Omar committed any crimes at all. They're as of right now, they're completely innocent and there's no evidence of crimes. But everything Vivek Ramaswamy is saying it's correct, but you're not going to stop billions, 8 billion, 9 billion in fraud unless a governor, and governors have gone to prison before. This is not like, unfortunately in U.S. history, we've had like a whole bunch, senators, governors, vice presidents. And so you can't stop rampant corruption unless the people allowing or complicit in the rampant corruption who were very powerful, the same people who set up and framed Trump with Russiagate, complete hoax that you'd have to be a complete imbecile to believe. You're not going to stop any of this corruption unless people go to prison or are indicted. And they say, well, Trump's going after his political opponents. For what? Why would he go after anyone? Oh, that's right. They tried to frame and set him up and send him to prison forever for nothing. They literally made up most of their. You can look at Russiagate, a hoax. You can look at him inflating his net worth, another hoax. And then they're going to, I can't wait until the Supreme Court overturns the hush money conviction, which should never have been. The hush money conviction, which will be overturned by the Supreme Court, completely unconstitutional. The FEC can't level, the state cannot level an FEC crime at anyone. That's the way Democrats roll. They go in New York, they go in Tammany Hall, a court that despises Trump, almost certainly. People who despise Trump, the jury almost certainly despised Trump, almost certainly. We don't know. Maybe they were completely apolitical. Maybe the judge was completely apolitical. Maybe I'm wrong in my assumption. But perhaps you had Democrats in Tammany Hall despising Trump in New York, and they convict him in an election year, which will be overturned because it's so unconstitutional. It's unbelievable. But you can't find one major conviction in Minnesota because, of course, there's no evidence now that Waltz or anyone else committed crimes. But Trump being convicted of an FEC crime is not only hilarious, the FEC literally dropped the case. They made it up, essentially they made it up. A state cannot level an FEC crime. But here you have this rampant fraud. It does no good to indict 90 people. That's not going to stop anything.
Misnomer in U.S. policy history that dates back 60 years. But now it's up to Republicans to fix it. And if we fail to tame that federal welfare state, we're in the long run complicit for the problem as well.
Ellen, hello. Happy New Year. Hope all is well. Thank you for watching.
And that's going to be much more important in the long run, I'm just being honest here, than playing whack-a-mole one at a time every time a viral video pops up. That's good. I appreciate the efforts of those who are doing it. But the real answer has to be constraining and taming the scope of the federal welfare state itself. We got to man up and do it. And if we don't, we're just going to see this happen over and over and over again. And I'll tell you, I'm going to do my part in Ohio in leading our state to be zero income tax, put that money back in the pockets of citizens where it belongs.
See, I love Vivek Ramaswamy, but there has to be a little bit like, he can't just say, gosh, it's just a YouTuber. That's not good. I want him to win. I want Vivek Ramaswamy to win. Okay, he probably doesn't know who I am and wouldn't even care about my thoughts, but I want him to win. But he might not win with this type of mentality. We need to do this and that, and this YouTuber is like, no, Vivek Ramaswamy has to have a press conference with Nick Shirley. Vivek Ramaswamy has to say, yeah, Waltz might have committed a crime. Vivek Ramaswamy has to, like, you know, he has to do what Trump has done. He's not going to get any support from media, so he has to create that support. And it's kind of like, you know, this whole thing has to be changed, and it's almost Newsom-esque, but on a conservative level. And that should tell you all you need to know. Again, I like Vivek Ramaswamy. I want him to win, but see, this is no good. This type of, it's kind of like too on the fence.
Yeah, I bet it's happening in every single state. Now, some states are managed much better than others. You're going to have the usual suspects, and of course, you know, a place like Michigan and Baltimore and those types of things. But I got to.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back tomorrow morning. We'll do 3 live streams a day on this channel. This is the 3rd live stream today, and we'll do the 6th video today on H.A. Goodman's other channel right now in a couple of seconds. Go to H.A. Goodman's other channel right now. We're over 20,000 subs. We're over 20, and, you know, I really haven't hit my stride at all on these live streams. We were getting 40,000, 50,000, 60,000 views a couple weeks back. So once we get some major indictments, I mean, it's rock and roll time. But anyway, hit subscribe. God bless you all. Thank you for watching. You can set your clocks every day, morning, noon, night, for live streams on H.A. Goodman. And if you enjoy the uploads, that's on H.A. Goodman's other channel. Be there, H.A. Goodman's other channel, in a couple minutes. Thanks, everybody.